Should they have made Squid Game Season 2? Did they wreck the near-perfect Season 1? And was Season 2 as good or better than Season 1? Oh man, I just finished watching Squid Game Season 2 and boy oh boy, do some of those moments pack a punch. 3 years after player 456 won Squid Game, he's still on a quest to take down the games and their owners once and for all. Season 1 was dark, but Season 2, it's gritty, it's got more time for social commentary and exploration of greed, human nature, and capitalism. Are humans inherently motivated by greed, power, and these days, money? Does it all come back to our survival instincts? Has money and greed begun to eat away at the very essence of the human soul? These are some big questions that this Season 2 of Squid Game offers some thought-provoking commentary around. I tell you guys, it hits different if you're watching Squid Game while you're facing a little bit of financial pressure or stress yourself. Now, over the Christmas period, I've actually found myself without work. Now, please don't worry guys, it's gonna be all okay, it's fine, but that feeling, no matter how big or small, it does really weigh down on you, and it's only really been in the last few years of my life that I've come to experience just a little taste of that and how it can really impact you day to day. I want to be very clear here guys, I am extremely privileged. No matter what happens, I'm very fortunate that I have a good safety net with my family if anything goes wrong for me. So I can't really claim to know what real financial pressure and stress is like. I've only had a tiny little taste of it. But I think in some ways, pretty much all of us, we have. We worry about our jobs, we worry about our careers, we don't know how we're going to pay the bills, the rising cost of living, how we're going to afford a house one day to possibly raise a family. I know there are a million people, millions of people across the whole world that are doing it way tougher than I am, just a guy living in Australia, and I do recognize that. But because of that shared experience that so many of us have, even if it is at vastly different levels, I think we can look at these characters and understand why they're so desperate to compete in these games and continue to compete even when they have the option to leave, even when they're faced with death. The capitalist world can be a brutal and unforgiving place, and Squid Game Season 2 is acutely aware of that, and it wants you to think about that while you're watching. It is definitely slower than Season 1, even though it's 7 episodes rather than 9, and holistically, it does kind of feel like that they're trying to stretch out a story that should have been told in 1 season across 2 seasons instead, because of course, we have Season 3 coming out next year in 2025. But at the same time, the character development, the plot details spread across so many different people and story threads is pretty impressive. The drama, the cinematography, the action sequences especially, when the show hits these checkboxes, it is just so much better than a whole bunch of different TV series that we have today. I could just sit and be immersed into this world based on the actors, the camera shots, the colors, the crispy 4K that I paid Netflix big bucks for. So much of this is just so engaging. Lee Jung-jae is an absolute legend of an actor. He's just so likable, and the way that he's able to convey a range of different emotions on his face, and I was just sitting there going, I can't believe the transformation that we've seen this character go from Season 1 to the end of Season 2 here. And the amount of meme-worthy moments that this series has, it is just so good, guys. I'm going to be clipping heaps of these and using them in future edits for sure. Let's go! So is Squid Game Season 2 as good as Season 1? You really have to talk spoilers to get into that, which I will in a second, but before I do that, overall I'd say no. Squid Game Season 2 is not as good as Season 1, but does that make it bad? No, it doesn't, because I don't think it's realistic to expect this season to live up to the unbelievably high standard of season 1. It just wasn't going to be possible. Let's jump into spoilers to get to the bottom of this, and first of all, we need to speak about Thanos. And no, not that Thanos, this Thanos.
I'm a legend.
I read an article from The Guardian which said he is one of the most irritating characters in TV history in recent times, and I have got to say, you are kidding, mate. I love him. Look, I'll admit, it did take a little bit of time for me to warm to his character, but the way he occasionally uses some English phrases, his personality, it all just adds a welcome sort of amount of comedy in an overall a lot darker of a season. He fits my sense of humor perfectly, and I mean, who would have thought we'd be watching Squid Game and getting Thanos from the MCU references? I mean, here we are, and we got all of that before we got GTA 6. The only kind of nitpick I'd have with his character would be how he was allowed to bring those drugs in that necklace, because all the other players had all their possessions removed from them when they're taken into the games, but I'm guessing that maybe they allowed it because the game makers wanted it to be more chaotic. The music score doesn't break new ground like it does in season 1. I mean, it's not bad, but there's like a specific moment in episode 5 where I can remember that they were trying to go with a bit more of a comedic tone, and instead the whole scene just kind of felt flat and it sort of took away from the stakes. There was also quite a few moments where it did feel a little cliche. Something I did think that was really creative and original was the use of split screen across this series. I don't think you see it every day now in movies and TV shows, and I think it really aided in the visual storytelling, and the show was all the better for it. The overall season structure here with the episodes feels significantly less satisfying than it did in season 1, because in season 1 they largely followed the model of each episode being a different game, but here they're kind of halved and split up across a whole bunch of different episodes, and it just doesn't feel as enjoyable to watch that structure. I really loved the opening 2 episodes, the darkness and guilt surrounding Gi-hun and his quest to try and take down the games and the whole aftermath. I think that was done really, really well. And then when you get to the actual games, you think, okay, the show's going to pick up the pace now. Here we go. And it does in a few moments, but in others, it still drags its feet. The idea that in these games, there's a democratic vote after every single round is a good idea on paper. And you know, it also provides a good opportunity for some commentary on human nature and democracy and power. But also at the same time, it does start to feel a little bit repetitive when they're voting for like the 3rd time. The show then turns into a gunfight for the final episode, and I'm not sure how I feel about that, because I think me, like most people, come to this series to see the creativity behind the games, not just people going and shooting at each other. And then that ending as well, it seemed like a direct homage to Breaking Bad, which was interesting. Even though Gi-hun is a very different character to Walter White, you can definitely see some parallels there, with a gradual descent into losing their sense of morals. Because, you know, Gi-hun, this whole series, he's all about trying to conserve human life, save people, but when it really comes down to it and the stakes are so high, he ultimately makes the decision to sacrifice people that are on his side for his overall personal goal of defeating the game makers. And he puts that ahead of ultimately what's best for everyone, because it results in a lot of people dying who are on his side, including his best friend, and it is a devastating ending. The decision to include the frontman in the games here, while it does seem a little bit repetitive with Il-nam being there in season 1, overall I think it was a really brilliant choice, and it adds some extremely dramatic and tension-filled moments. And man, the show just knows how to rip your heart out with the whole sick child with cancer plot, the mother and child dynamics, the pregnant woman. It almost seems maybe there's one or two too many tragedies, but it's kind of just teetering on the edge here. The whole plot with the guys out to sea with the frontman's brother, the police detective, searching for the island, it was interesting at the start, but then it did start to feel a little bit slow and repetitive, and I kind of felt like it was a little bit cheap, that whole reveal about the sailing captain somehow being dodgy or sort of a traitor. I mean, I guess it reached a crescendo towards the end of the season, but I feel like maybe they could have revealed that just a little bit earlier to add a bit more sort of urgency to those scenes. And probably overall my prediction is that the sailing captain was somehow employed by the front man to look after the detective, but also to keep him off the trail and make it so he doesn't actually find the island. There are times where some of the characters feel a bit annoying or a bit boring, and the plot does feel a little bit slow, but that could be a symptom of binging 7 episodes of the series across 2 days. I think Netflix has some issues with how they decide to release shows like this. And yeah, I probably felt like episode 5 was the weakest of the run. I actually really loved the first 2 episodes, how they dealt with the whole aftermath of the first season. But yeah, overall I'd probably say I enjoyed the start of the season more than the end. That being said though, the final game, Mingle, that was awesome, and the scenes in there were so good. It was great for me personally to see a game that I used to play all the time at footy training, and to get a little taste of how it would feel like if you'd grown up playing a lot of the games that were featured earlier and seeing it taken to its extreme. That was awesome, and I absolutely loved that so much. So overall, guys, was it worth the 3-year wait? I'm not sure that we can really say that until we see season 3 in 2025. It is still amazing quality television, and Hwang Dong-hyuk is a mastermind, and I think it is an important and timely reminder that if you're prepared to read a few subtitles, there is a whole world out there of amazing, high quality international cinema and television that we should all make an effort to check out. I am pretty stuck with my rating on this one, you know. I think there's some parts, like mainly with the pacing and the extended story, that I did find a little bit disappointing, and the comparisons with season 1 are, you know, they're definitely in your mind, but at the same time, I think this series, it has a lot to say about our society today, and it really puts in the time and effort with the characters to develop the plot. And, you know, I think I also need to give it a bit of benefit of the doubt with the fact that I binged it so quickly. So overall, I'm gonna give Squid Game Season 2 4 stars out of 5. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, and if you want to see some more unique cinema and TV related content, please consider subscribing to my channel, and I'll see you guys in the games.